Hey, it's April. Let's put some tilt on the wheat, even though it's not going to be worth much. Oh hell. Everything is filled up. I'm ready to go. This wheat doesn't look too bad for some cheap wheat. And when I say cheap, I mean as far as the price outlook that we'll receive for it in June. What I'm putting on here, I said the chemical name, Tilt. And what that is a fungicide. And that is for powdery mildew and leaf rust and all those funguses that can get into the wheat. So you need to put this on at flag leaf stage. So that is the stage we are at right now, is flag leaf stage. So if that flag leaf, has any type of disease on it, then it affects the grain quality and the test weight and all of that other stuff. Over there along the edge of the woods, it was still a little bit wet. And then my other spot over on the other side of the field, I'm going to leave a track or two. But it's time to get this stuff done. There are some guys that have started planting corn this week, but they're further north from here, where the ground is a little bit sandier and lighter, and so it is dried out. We're not quite ready here. Our ground down here is heavier types of soil, not a lot of sand in it, if any, more clay in it, so it stays wetter longer, it stays colder longer. So hopefully next week. The forecast is looking pretty good as far as temperatures and precipitation, meaning not a lot of precipitation and temperatures starting to get into the 70s every day. I'm trying to follow the same tracks that I used the last time I sprayed this, which was last month when I put the Harmony on here for the grass and weeds to kill that, along with some nitrogen. So once I figured out the tracks, I got it mastered, I think. That other track right there was from when I put the fertilizer on here. Now it's telling me I'm 18 inches off, but I'm right in the track. So the other track is from fertilizer. So the fertilizer spreader is only 40 foot width versus 45 with the sprayer. So I can't stay in the same tracks for both the fertilizer spreader and the sprayer. So eventually the two meet up. So you can see right here the fertilizer track, it's a little bit closer. So on the next track, I don't think it'll be the same track, but it's going to be much closer. Just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, or just the way the tractor tracks line up. And so these tracks didn't quite line up on this pass. You can see I've got one track right in the middle, the other track there. So on the next pass, they will line up. It's probably every 9 passes? I guess every 9 passes they would line up, right? Is that the correct math? 40 and 45? I don't know. You do the math. My brain hurts today. I received an interesting email a couple of days ago, and it's somewhat flattering, I guess. Or maybe it's an email of desperation. Our local Catholic elementary school that I went to, that my parents went to, that my daughter went to, St. Michael's School, the principal of that school sent an email to me asking me if I would be interested in being a substitute teacher next school year, starting in September. That would be a very interesting job. I think I would like that. I think I could do that, especially at St. Michael's. They have very small class sizes there. The kids are well behaved and good for the most part. Now, I have not called her back yet to find out if there is a teacher maybe going on maternity leave, and so they already know they need a substitute, for a couple of months or so, a couple of weeks, or do they just need someone to be on call? I could be the on-call person. It's not something that I could do for a couple of weeks at a time, and there's certain times of the year that I would not be able to do this. But, November, December, January, February, those months, I could easily do 1 day a week, I think, if need be. I think I'm going to call her and find out exactly what it is they're after. Am I a backup? Would I be a backup substitute where, they have two people, so when a teacher calls out sick at the last minute or has something planned next week, do they have another person they would call first, and if that person can't do it, they would call the second person? I don't know. It's just intriguing. I used to be a substitute bus driver for St. Michael's back. I wasn't even married yet, so this would have been like right after high school that I was a substitute bus driver, and that worked out pretty well with farm work. And I did that for a number of years. I must have been 20, probably 22, something like that. I also did a little bit of substitute bus driving for for the public school system as well. And I enjoyed it. As a substitute, you do get away with a little bit more because they need a substitute worse than the substitute needs that job in most cases. So, you can be a little more harsh on the kids if need be. And I remember one time, the kids just were not listening. They would not sit down. They were not being quiet. And there were a couple of them, a couple of bad kids, standing up in the aisle, just would not sit down. And these kids came from a wealthy neighborhood, and I have to say, as far as discipline goes, they were some of the worst kids from that wealthy neighborhood. And I just slammed on the brakes. There weren't any cars behind me. I was in the neighborhood. I just slammed on the brakes, and they fell into the aisle. Oh man, if they didn't get mad, I'm going to tell my mommy on you. I said, I don't care. Go ahead, tell your mommy. I said, I don't need this job. You know what? I didn't have any more problems with that particular group of kids after that. And mommy never called me to complain about my actions. Now, could a regular bus driver get away with that? I don't know, probably not. The poor neighborhood, I drove a couple of buses for the poorer neighborhoods in the county. Those kids were great. They had no issues with those kids. I remember one time, and I don't know what neighborhood this was, but it was a public school bus that I was substituting for. And at the end of every route, at the end of the day, or at the end of the morning route or the afternoon route, I always walked up and down the aisle of the bus to make sure nothing had been left behind by the kids. Pick up any trash, things of that nature. One evening, it was after the elementary run, the last run of the day, probably 4:30 or 5 o'clock. I parked the bus in the lot, walked down the aisle, and towards the back of the bus is this little kid, pre-K or kindergarten age. I don't know if he was asleep then, but I'm like, whoa, where did you get off at? And being a substitute driver, you don't always know where all of the kids belong unless you have driven that bus before. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do here? I got to figure out where this kid lives now. So he was smart enough to give me a general idea of where he lived. So again, I shouldn't have done this, but I put the kid in my truck and I said, okay, let's go back over the route here and you tell me where you live. You know, I guess I should have probably drove the bus back with him. I could have been in a lot of trouble if anything had happened in my personal vehicle with that kid in there. But as I said, as a substitute, you get away with more stuff. So I got him back home. I'm not even sure his parents realized that he was supposed to be home yet, but he got home safely. So just good times being a substitute bus driver. And I still have the passenger endorsement on my license. I have kept that endorsement, and I don't know what I would have to do now to become a substitute bus driver. And I don't even know what I'd have to do to become a substitute teacher either. I'm sure I would have to go get fingerprinted. I'm sure that background check is no longer any good. When my kid was at St. Michael's School, anyone that volunteered at the school had to be fingerprinted to have a background check. And so I had been fingerprinted to go on class trips with her and to be a volunteer at the school. But I'm sure that has expired. I know that would be the minimum I would have to do, is have a background check and be fingerprinted. But I don't know what else I'd have to do. I don't think there's any formal education other than the School of Hard Knocks. And I've been there, done that. So we'll think about it. As I said, I'll go talk to the principal and see exactly what she has in mind for this. But it's just, as I said, flattering, or they're just desperate for people, for substitutes. We'll see. It's not sinking down too bad, actually. The next spot may be the worst spot, the next pass. I talked about it in the other video where we were either spraying or putting fertilizer on this weed. This spot here where the water likes to lay, so you can see it's still a bit yellower than the rest of it. But now we've gotten out of that spot and it's greened up and looks nice here. Maybe you can see a little bit better this yellow spot right here. And this is just a lower spot in the field where the water likes to lay. But then once you get away from it, a little bit better over here. That part of the field up on a hill is more sandy versus this part where it kind of slopes down towards the trees there, and the water will lay here in a little bit heavier soils. Alright, let's see if we sink down any here. Not too bad. one field of wheat on this farm that I may have to leave a few places out. But by the time I get to that field, I'm planning it so my tank will be almost empty, just enough to finish that field. So that will help out with a lighter load on the sprayer. Well, I was going to show you the progress that was made on the lights on this truck, but we must have taken a step back. I see a battery charger here. I see a battery sitting over there. A battery in here. Did they kill the battery while they were working on the lights last night? Let's see. So I got a text message about 10 o'clock last night with a picture of lights lit up on here. But she cannot find the wire for the backup lights. So she does not have those connected yet because she cannot find that wire for those. So before I left here yesterday evening, I did some testing for her to figure out in the wiring harness up underneath of there, you know, the brake lights, the running lights, the blinking lights. And what we had determined was that the brake switch, there was an issue with the brake switch. So I had them get up underneath of there and look. I think they put a new brake booster on there. So what was happening is the brake pedal was not coming back against that switch and turning the brake lights off, because as we were doing the testing on this, she had two wires that stayed hot. And I said, something tells me your brake pedal switch there's something wrong with it. So yeah, sure enough, when they got up under there and looked, the pedal was not coming all the way back to close that switch and turn those brake lights off. So I told them how to adjust that. So I think they got that adjusted. So brake lights, signal lights, hazard lights, running lights are working. It's just the backup lights that are not working now. All right, this one was mine. So let me take this and put it back in my collection. Farmer's daughter is quite upset at the moment because she does not have a tagged vehicle in her name. She made the deal yesterday to sell her truck back to the dealership. So she has no tagged vehicle in her name right now, and she's highly upset over that. She's driving one of my pickup trucks until she can find another vehicle to purchase. So that's why she's hell-bent now on at least getting this truck on the road and finishing that up. So she is hoping to have that finished by next week and go up and get tags for that. I don't know if she has to have it inspected for historic tags or not. I'm not sure how that process works. She's looked into all of that and she knows all of that. We'll have more on this whole story and the truck fiasco with the dealership not fixing her truck and buying that back. Before I put any negative stuff out there, we have to get everything finalized with them first, because I don't want them to hold anything back because we've talked badly about them being the dealership. So we'll save that story for another day. I know I keep saying that in each video, but we're trying to get all the cats lined up and all the ducks lined up and the stars and the moon lined up before we put this story out there. Okay, it's almost 5 o'clock, so it's adult beverage time. I'm gonna say, see ya! See ya!